I want to show you this image. This is the Regiment Select screen. Uh, so here on the right hand side, this is your regiment that you're building. Over here on the left, this is the things that you can bring them from. Up here on the top, these are the different factions that you can choose from. And you'll notice in this screen, we have this kind of pretty background art. And this actually prompted a discussion in the studio about what should we do for the screen, because I'm of the opinion that I would like, when somebody chooses Ivoria versus Red Keep, that this screen change. Maybe there's a panel here or something that lets you figure out what it is you're going to put in your regiment. What factions do you choose them from? So it feels like it's from that area. You know, oh, this feels like Red Keep, or this feels like Ivoria. So I got to thinking, well, we have 14 different factions. And here's the thing about game development that most people forget about. Let's pull out Mr. Calculator. So let's say we sell this game for 20 bucks, right? Well, remember, we don't actually get 20 bucks. We get the 70% of the 20 bucks after Steam takes its tax, right? If you consider Steam sales and the fact that a bunch of these games sold at 50% or whatnot, you can probably pull another 30% off of this price. So let's multiply that by a conservative 70% again. Probably on average, we're going to make something like, let's call it $10 a unit. And by the way, the $20 price point is not definite. I'm just pulling that out as a placeholder for the purposes of this discussion, right? So we get to about $10 a unit, right? So you start asking yourself, what does one screen of art like that cost? Well, I'm going to need 14 of them. And what does that get me, right? Now let's, for the moment, and I'm just pulling a number out of my ass. Let's, for the moment, say that making each one of those screens costs 3 days worth of an artist's time. Okay. And let's say I'd have 14 of those. That's going to be 42 working days, which is something like a month and a half. All right, we'll conservatively call that a month and a half. All right, well, let's say I pay an artist, and again, I'm just pulling random, and these are, conservative estimates. I pull a random number out. Let's say I pay an artist $1,500 a month, right? Well, I multiply that by 1.5, and this task is going to be a $2,250 task, right? Well, I know that I make $10 a game. I divide that by 10, and I say, well, all right, to make this idea that I had of having these backgrounds be pretty, and the $1,500, by the way, I'm trying to not dox anybody's salary. That's just a number that I'm pulling out. Assuming it were that number, might be more, might be less, not doxing anybody's salary here, but assuming it were that number, you would have to sell 225 extra units of this game to make that one decision a cash positive decision. And I use this as an example for the thing that people don't talk about. If you go over to Discord, everyone's got a lot of great ideas, and I appreciate all the wonderful ideas. Don't let me discourage you from, giving us good ideas. But every one of those ideas has to be put back against this math. And this math I kept, because this one task is a very, it's a very small, sort of easy to understand task. We can either have that art in the background or not. There's no extra coding involved. There's no special feature involved. Once I start talking about a real feature, let's say somebody says, I want to have a game mode where I can play King of the Hill, right? Well, now I'm going to have to change the UI to support that. I'm going to have to code in a King of the Hill thing. I'm going to have to put testers on testing it. I'm going to have to build King of the Hill features. I'm going to have to, once I start putting that all together, we're going to easily jump up to a month worth of work or something like that for like 5 or 6 people. Well, I multiply month's worth of salary times those 5 people, and I say, all right, does this feature get me the, 800,000 extra copies of this game we need to sell? That's the reality of game development. And it's funny, a lot of people who don't make games that you read all the time. You know, why didn't they just do this? Why didn't they? It's so simple. They could have just blah. This is why. This is why you don't get nice things, because selling 1,000 units on Steam is hard to do. There are lots of games out there, many games out there that have not sold 1,000 units total on Steam. And you're talking about needing to sell that 1,000 units for that one feature of this one game. And one of the challenges for us being a professional studio is our people are actually paid. As nice as all of the artists and such are in the studio, they wouldn't make this pretty art unless I paid them to do it, right? To make a game of this size and scale in any reasonable amount of time is very difficult for a small indie garage team. There's just way too many features and way too many assets. And so for those guys to put this together, they have to get paid, and that money has to come from somewhere. And we don't have a publisher. We don't have an investor. This money has to come basically out of my pocket. And it comes out of my pocket with the hope that at some day I'll get that money back, right? I mean, I love making games and I'm a nice guy and all, but I also have a couple kids that I got to put through college and shit. And I'm, literally taking money from the bank account. I'm not going to have a kid in college unless you guys go build this thing that returns all this money to me. And so every time we look at one of these features, I have to think about how many more units will sell because I put this feature in. And so in this particular example, my decision was, you know what, that looks really great, but you know what, it would look fine if the background was just black and they had a little flag. And you know what, I can build the flags in 10 minutes and we can be done. And if at a later date I decide I want to put backgrounds in here because this game is obviously going to make lots of money, let's do that. But right now I can't validate that this decision is going to sell 225 or however many more. I don't think putting that in the background sells me an extra 200 units right now. That's game development. So there's a fun little example of the real struggles of actual indie game developers.